Command Value 1.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Command Value 1, a podcast about wargaming, hobby, and whatever other random pop culture thing crosses our desk. I'm Derek, and I'm with Don and Jordan for our first episode here. We figure we'll do a brief introduction, and we'll get into talking about some news, some game recaps, some hobby, and then some of our own final thoughts. So let's get things rolling. Don, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Don Roach. I live in Michigan. I have been in the war game industry for a couple years now. I'm a previous employee of Hulk War Games and was kept on board with the TT Combat buyout. And then doing basically the same thing over here in the States. More or less anything that relates to the States is done by me, except for major sales and things like that. So I handle volunteers, I handle the conventions, and anything that has to do with that. I'm also I do some painting, and I also do a lot of rule stuff for them currently, especially helping Dave out with the Zone and Fleet stuff right now currently. So you'll see me in the communities a lot, asking questions about rules and things like that. And since we have a bulletin point list here that Derek gave us, I'll go down the row here. My favorite war game is Dropzone Commander. A close second to that, even though I haven't played it in quite some time, is Bushido by GCT. If you're not familiar with that, it's a skirmish-size game, Japanese folklore sort of background. Plays with about usual skirmish size, I guess, 8 to 10 models. No real horde faction per se, and even the horde factions don't have a ton of models. Unique things about that is it plays on a 2x2, which is pretty unique for a skirmish size. So, bit of a small play surface there. Let's see, we have preferred hobby materials. Let's see. I don't have any preference in brushes. I typically just go for what looks good at the store. I'll go to my local art store and kind of rummage and grab a couple that I think look good. Typically use Reaper paints for all my brush painting, and I prefer Vallejo Air and Badger for all my airbrushing needs. And then interesting facts. I don't have any interesting facts about myself I care to share, so...
I was going to say, you're not a very interesting individual.
What was that?
So I was going to say, you're not a very interesting individual.
No, as everybody can tell, I'm kind of a boring person, especially compared to the way I look. So,
Jordan, how about you?
How about me? Introduction to wargaming and hobbying. Been into the hobby. We've known each other 20 years now, and our friendship was based on the hobby area. Used to role play together with Derek quite a bit, and then I think the two of us kind of jumped back in or into wargaming together. 4 or 5 years ago now.
Well, our initial jump into wargaming was that brief stint where we had a lot of people who were going to play 40K, and then no one ever did.
Right. But we both jumped into Dropzone.
We've been in Dropzone for at least 4, almost 5 years, yeah.
Yep.
Don's messaging me while we're recording.
Right.
it was a request, all right.
Like quite a few role-playing systems through the years. If there's been a major system, we probably at least looked at it if we hadn't played it. Favorite war game, of course, is Dropzone Commander. Back to the introduction part. Some of you might have seen me at some of the American shows. I have been volunteering for Donald here quite a bit recently. Preferred hobby materials, brushes. I like Rosemary and Company, and Windsor and Newton Series 7, the black sable brushes from either company. Go-to paint is Reaper Paints. Also, I really like the Vallejo Metallics, both lines for different reasons. And Badger's Stynal Res for primer is hands down the best on the market. They give a free shout out.
Badger does not sponsor the show.
No. In fact, quick side note on that. I saw some guy post in the on Facebook group of some sort how he loathes the Stynal Res, and he can't understand how anybody could ever like that product. Meanwhile, the entire other portion of that thread was people just going on and on about how good that Stynal Res was.
So
It's a good product.
Starts the thread about talking about how bad Stynal Res is, and
no, it was a comment and then some thread. I forget exactly what the topic was, but there was one dude who just like chimed in to talk about his disdain of Stynal Res and how he doesn't understand how everybody likes it.
As I look to the left,
it's hundreds of comments like saying how good the product is, and I'm like, all right, dude, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, as I look to my left at my 7 different colored bottles of Stynal Res.
Right. I mean, teach their own, but like to flat out call people out for liking a product when it's unanimously like not even a question liked by the hobby community in whole. So, but all right, sorry, Jordan. Just wanted to bring that up.
all good, man. Interesting facts.
Jordan's looking for a house right now. That's an interesting fact, Libby.
That is an interesting fact. With a murder room.
Currently in the process of trying to buy a house in Cincinnati. Just moved there for my job. So I also enjoy puns way too much. So
Oh, Jordan's got good dad puns.
Yeah,
I enjoy the dad jokes more than I should, even though I'm not a dad.
Yeah, well, you ever spawn, you're good there. You've got that down.
Not that covered.
All right, I suppose I should go through this, huh?
You made us do it, so you get to do it now.
So my introduction to hobby, I should be way better at it than I am. I started painting miniatures when I was about 10 years old. I had a local game shop, and that's where I got introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, and through that, old Grenadier and Raoul Partha real lead miniatures. So, you know, I go back a ways.
Back to the toxic days.
Yeah. When I was in college with Jordan, we got into 40K pretty hard and heavy. We had a big group, probably about 8 people that were everyone had a different army picked out, and we were gonna do big campaigns. And I was taking student loan money to invest in a massive Space Marine army, and I was painting my ass off. And I looked around, and no one else had either bought anything, and if they hadn't bothered to put anything together and paint it. And everything just sat in the box for years. And it wasn't until I saw Dropzone the first year or 2 after it came out, and I'm like, that's a really cool looking game, but I didn't have the money. I was poor. And they went into plastic, and I think, well, when I got into it, Reconquest Phase 1 had just come out. Like, Resistance was brand new. Like, the full Resistance line was out when I got in. So Don, whenever that was when I jumped in with Dropzone.
Same for me. Same year. I think that was 15 maybe. 2015.
So no, it was longer back than that, man.
No, I think it was 15.
Oh, maybe.
Sure, that's when I got into it.
So if the gaming gods came down, or my wife came down, and
14, sorry.
14. I was gonna say that sounds a little more accurate. If I was to pare down the one game, though, Zone would be the game of choice. I mean, I like Fleet, but as far as playing goes, my number 2 game is probably Infinity. That's the one I'm getting the most play in right now. U.S. Ariadna for the win. My preferred hobby materials, I'm actually an Army Painter guy when it comes to paints. Army Painter and Badger Minotaur are my 2 preferred paints. And I tend to use Army Painter brushes as well. with the exception of this fantastic set of really cheap Chinese brushes I found that have just not. I can't even tell you what they're called because they're all in Chinese. But it was like
Oh, is it really?
it was like $2 for a 6-pack, and the double and triple zero have not lost their point. They're like amazing, and they're actually wood handles with this neat triangle shape. They're great brushes. I got them on Wish.com, so do what you're gonna do. But then I also have a Badger Patriot and Sotar that Jordan made me buy, and that was the best peer pressure decision I ever buckled to, because those things are awesome. They really helped me.
Yeah, I think there's premium airbrushes out there that might be better than Badger, but bang for your buck, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I've been very happy with them. Again, Badger's not sponsoring us, but maybe we should get a hold of Ken and see if he wants to.
I use Iwata, and that was just because I got in with that company first. I did my research, and had I known about Badger before I got into Iwata, I probably would have went that route. Typically try to go with American-made stuff if I can, but I really like the precision of Iwata. And the only thing negative I can really say about the product is it is a little expensive here in the U.S. since it's a Italian company, I believe it is.
Yeah, but when you go to Hobby Lobby, man, everything's 40% off.
Oh, I don't have a Hobby Lobby.
The Iwatas at Hobby Lobby are Chinese, so
It was a joke, man. I was trying to be funny. Let's see. Do I have any interesting facts? I'll do the shameless plug. I run the Gamer Drek channel on YouTube, where Jordan and occasionally Don and I all do Dropzone and Fleet battle reports. So, if you enjoy listening to us banter here, pop over there, like, subscribe, share, because it builds awareness for the game.
You and I haven't actually got a proper battle report going. I've been at the same location when you were doing them, but you and I have never.
We've had a couple of combined games. There's that game Patrick and I decimated you and Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
That was.
I thought we won that game.
No,
we won.
I shouldn't have even thought that, since Patrick was playing against.
Yeah, you did the exact opposite of winning. But I think
we beat half of them.
Say again, Jordan.
I said we beat half of them.
Oh,
if I remember right, you got decimated and Patrick didn't.
No, it was pretty ugly, actually. Patrick and I both brought Hades, and Patrick also brought a Nemesis. We kind of just walked wherever we wanted on that board. So but you can go back and revisit the battle report if you want to on my YouTube channel, Gamer Drek.
Yeah, is that the game in Toledo?
Yeah, we're at the game room. Okay. All right. Well, hey, that's, I think, decent enough for introductions for us. Let's move on to what's new. So Gen Con just wrapped up. Well, it's been almost 3 weeks since Gen Con. Well, 2 weeks since it ended, probably.
3 now. No, it's 3, yeah.
Yeah. Time flies.
No,
so, Don, as a TT Combat employee, why don't you give us their perspective on how Gen Con went this year?
Yeah, so Gen Con is, of course, the biggest show of the year. Even though Essen Spiel technically beats us, Gen Con by attendance, it's, I believe, a one-day show, and it's more of a show us what you got kind of a show. I don't believe that there's hardly any events, if any. So it's more of like a one-day kind of trade show sort of thing. So what Gen Con is advertised as 4 days of gaming. Technically it's 5, because the Wednesday before everything starts, everybody rolls in and the vendors are finishing up their setup. So there's plenty of gaming going on Wednesday night as well. So if you've never done Gen Con, plan on doing it at least once. Forewarning, it costs about as much as Disneyland to go. So you're going to do a little bit of financial planning. But it's a lot of fun. It literally takes over the city of Indianapolis. Every bit of it that you can not have to take a car to get to, within walking distance, is just nerds filled everywhere. So, but anyway, so from TT Combat's perspective, we did excellent sales. We've done actually excellent sales all year long at all of our trade shows, so that's been pretty good. Nice warm welcome to the company, even though people are familiar with Dropzone and Drop Fleet. We got Rumble Slam, which is done actually outbeat all of our games so far in the U.S. Just people have just been loving that game. If you're not familiar with Rumble Slam, it's a fantasy wrestling game. Plays out like a Royal Rumble, so you have a small ring set up, and you get about 5 to 8 wrestlers on each side, and basically try to beat each other up and toss them out of the ring. And a lot of pop culture references in our wrestling line, even though it's a lot of generic fantasy in there as well. You're also getting like an orc, that's Hulk Hogan, called Gunn, and then Randy Savage is Randy Savage's dwarf, et cetera, et cetera.
Rowdy Piper as a halfling.
Yeah. So then, but anyway, so sales were good. It's a real good reaction to all the Battle for Earth stuff. Dave was covering all the Battle for Earth stuff. Occasionally, when he was too busy, we would chime in and let people know what was going on with that. And we'll cover that a little bit more later on in this segment here. Carnivale, again, it was the first time that was demoed in the U.S. Well received. We had a couple of excellent demo boards put together. Fox, our good friend of ours, just did a great job with those. And then I did the demo sets. We had a pretty cool night board set up. So he had painted everything in a muted color scheme with blue he used to look like moonlight, and then there's the little tea lights or whatever they're called in the buildings, and then I painted everything up with like a zenithal glow, so it looked like they had a glow from the buildings on their faces and stuff like that. And so it turned out really cool, and everybody seemed to really receive the game really well. And we got a couple pre-orders in on that, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I have to say, I had zero interest in Carnivale before I sat down with Lewis and played a demo. And I really enjoyed myself. I was surprised how much I liked the game. And when I was in the case, I was like, yeah, Landshark sold me. I'll at least buy the starter.
Yeah, it's a really cool game. Like, I think people are going to really like this game. It's skirmish size game, so that's always a big plus because it doesn't cost a ton of money to get into. The setting is unique, and it's Venetian horror, so you're in the canals of Venice. So that's not something you see a lot, or any of, really.
Well, and interesting enough, too, is TT's got that whole MDF board ready for you to just buy. So it's going to be really nice and easy to build yourself a table pretty inexpensively.
Right, yep. So it all works out pretty good. And then since one thing that I think that's really cool about us is that we, other than making mats, we cover just about every end of the business. So if you get into a game of ours, it's going to have tons of player rates straight out of our back pocket, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so Carnival, it has a lot of cool. I think the biggest feature for that game, aside from the theme, is the movement. So it has a lot of parkour elements in the game. So you're jumping off rooftops, jumping over canals. So like the movement in the game is so fluid. You can jump off of walls, do like wall rides and stuff like that. So there's no one way to get around the board. Essentially, is what it comes down to. So I think that's pretty cool. And then Rumble Slam, that we almost sold out of it. The shelves were pretty much bare by the time we got done. So thanks to everybody who came and checked out all of our games and tried all of our games. We also had the terrain there, and that sold excellent as well. Lots of good compliments on that. We brought the old iPad over to do the board sales. So typically at our shows, we do a full table's worth of terrain, including tiles, MDF tiles for like $200, free shipping. So that's typically what we do at the cons itself. So good feedback and everything all around, and everybody seemed to really enjoy it. Then we also had our new display cases that we just bought. They were behemoths, man. Oh my God, I was a little worried because I didn't know. Like, I had the dimensions, and I thought I had everything figured out in my head, but when we got there, started picking up the cases, to actually had to make two runs to get it to the convention center. It was a little scary.
On paper, it was not as big as it was in person.
Yeah, I think.
It looked nice, though. The racks all looked really nice. It was a good layout.
Yeah, cool. We were hoping people would enjoy those. And for as much as people enjoy display equipment, I love them, but it's also like something that would get me excited.
You do enough loadout/load-ins, anything that speeds that up and makes that easier is a gift from God.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, overall, no complaints this year. We really did really well. Everybody seemed to really enjoy themselves. Excellent crew. I'm not going to forget my demo crew, of course. Since Jordan's on the line, I'll talk him up. Jordan works the show as if he's an employee, and I got a bunch of friends of mine and ex-talons that all do the same thing, and they're all very happy to help out. So I can't thank those guys enough. I mean, there is no show without help like that. Fortunately, in the gaming industry, there's not a ton of money going about, so a lot of companies rely on their volunteer help. So hopefully every one of them appreciate the people helping them out.
Well, you mentioned Jordan, and he's Jordan. You've worked every show since last Gen Con in the States, haven't you?
Last Origins.
Last Origins. Well, not in the entirety. We worked part of that last Origins, but well, of course, Jordan's only worked part of Origins the last 2 years. So
yeah, I didn't do all of Origins either year, but I've done all of Gen Con the past 2 years and Adepticon.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and why don't you let everybody know about your experience, since you've done quite a bit of shows so far, and you know it all by the back of your hand at this point in time. Mm-hmm. How it is to be a volunteer, not just with us, but in general, like how it is, what's your perspective from working a show as somebody, who is essentially doing free labor for a company.
Right. So, I will, first things first, it costs you money to volunteer at a show, not gonna lie. Because you're away from home, you got to feed yourself, but no big deal. It is very rewarding. I lose my voice every single time.
Yeah.
But it's so wonderful meeting all the different people at the shows, talking about the games you love, the games you don't love, showing someone your favorite game, talking shop. It's easy to BS with someone every day, but it's also nice to BS with someone new, kind of get fresh perspectives. And then, not gonna lie, by the Sunday of every show, running the same demo over and over and over again can get a little old, but not super old.
Good thing about a demo set like that, though, is it really pounds the rules into you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your mastery of the basic mechanics is second to none, sir.
Right. I know those base units pretty well by now.
Right. What's sad is I still can't tell the Scourge cruisers apart.
One has a hat and one has a beard. The Shenlong has a hat and the Wyvern has a beard. So you got to remember.
Where's the beard?
I've built and painted those too, is the sad part. And
the gargoyles, if you can't tell the frigates part, the gargoyle has lamb chops.
So you spend a lot of time at that demo table hungry, I take it.
Yeah. They sound like you teaching me a game or selling me a 5-course meal here, sir.
Right. I was talking like lamb chops, like the facial hair.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Okay, maybe I'm hungry.
They still look like the cut of the meat, because that's why they're called lamb chops. The hard thing to do is you get so ingrained. So that there's 2 types of demos you do. There's the demo for the wargamer, and there's the demo for the complete new person.
Which one's more fun?
Some people have a little bit more mastery over the movement and a bit of the minutia, and some people don't. So you find yourself projecting a bit more of the moves with the newer players, like, hey, this is what this unit's good at, so let's move this from here to here. You kind of do their moves for them the first turn. I mean, not all the way, but strongly suggest. And then you get that other person that knows war games enough, and you strongly suggest moves, because you're kind of in the habit, and then they start to get offended because you're doing everything for them. So kind of a weird fine line that you kind of sometimes have to watch. But
yeah, and my favorite is when you do demos for somebody and they're like trying to be really serious about it.
Or when you're
really
starting
trying to win that demo.
Or when you're starting a demo for somebody and they're like, yeah, this is my 5th demo since I've been here because this is the only time I get to play the game.
right.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty rare occurrence. Unfortunately, Gary got stuck with that one. But yeah, and that's the other thing cool. I mean, as you start doing more shows, I mean, I'm sure you're already seeing it now. As you recognize people, return customers, and
Oh yeah.
like, oh, dude, what's up? I was, how the Battlefleet box turning out, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool to see how they've developed and stuff like that. And plus, with you and Derek having such a huge community, especially in the Midwest area, it's also really good for you guys to be like, well, where are you at? Where are you playing? This is where we're playing.
Oh yeah, that's another fun part. Even the communities that we're not part of is like, oh, you're in this area. Well, go find this community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't regret that. $12 I spent to make business cards for the Facebook group / YouTube channel. It's I think it's been a help, and you mentioned that community, Don. It's almost 80 members just for Ohio, and there's a little spillover between Pennsylvania and Michigan and Indiana, but we average a half dozen plus players at every monthly get together, and we're alternating to the north end and the central south end of the state. So
that speaks volumes to you guys as a whole, and how you are not only passionate about the game but willing to go out of your way to help develop a scene for it so that you have people to play with. And I think that's one of our bigger questions that we get a lot is, how do I grow a scene? I like this game, but I got nobody to play with. And so that's why, especially if either of you guys are at a show, because you've done even better than I did, and I had a pretty good group going here in Michigan before I started working for the company. So, I mean, hats off to the way you guys can promote it, and I think anybody looking to do exactly that should get a hold of you guys, because obviously you do it exactly right. So,
and I don't know that we've really done anything impressive. This conversation popped up somewhere in one of the groups, and I think Patrick made a comment about benefiting from being close to both you and I as far as having organized play. And I said, is calling a game shop and saying, hey, can we play on this day, really organized play?
I mean, it's effort that some people might not think about, and it's also more effort than some people are willing to give. So it's also a bit of a sobering fact for some people too, in that, back when there were no war games, even when 40K was first starting or whatever, it grew as much as it did because this is exactly what people did,
Yeah. Go play the game. Go play the game in public.
Right.
Demo it for people. Encourage people to try it. Paint your models.
Yeah, to dumb it down even further, you just have to try a little bit. You have to put yourself out there. It's say, hey, I'm gonna go here this day. Come and try the game with me. Might not work the first day you do it, but eventually.
Yeah. Well, I ran the tournaments for Origins the last 2 years, and Dropzone's not been the greatest. We increased 25% this year. We added a whole nother player and got to 4 players this year for Zone, but it was a good time. But I mean, Fleet we've held at 8 players, and I had more signed up that didn't show. I don't know what happened there, but
and unfortunately, he's always dropped at shows. It just happens.
But those are always positive experiences, and it's one of those games that I think if you just get out there and play it, and you have even a decent table out and tabletop standard painted models that it's when people walk by it, it catches their eyes because there isn't a game on the market that looks like it. Even with the release of Adeptus Titanicus, which so many people have seen say, oh, this is going to kill Dropzone. It doesn't compare because you're talking about a game with 3 or 4 models on the table and 4 or 5 buildings on the table. Visually, it just does not have that same punch that you get when you see a nicely done Dropzone table. You look at some of those photos from Gen Con from Fox's tables for the event he ran, and that table is just gorgeous. And seeing those models on it, even some of the models that were simple paint schemes, it's just an awesome looking game when you see it all decked out on that table. And really, there isn't anything I've seen on the market that truly compares to it.
No, especially when you get a game that really relies. I mean, Infinity is another good example of this. A game that relies on a lot of terrain is a bit of a money sink in some regards, but also people see those boards and they're like, "What is going on this table?" Because this looks awesome.
Well, I got that Necromunda, that Industrial Hive terrain that TT did at Gen Con, and I took that out last week when I got to play Infinity. And aside from the one guy going, "Oh, it's Necromunda terrain," and I'm like, "Oh crap, it is." But no, I think I sent you some pictures of that, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's just a pretty looking game, and it's I don't know. For me, it's what sells me on the idea of wargaming in general.
Yeah, it's more immersive. I mean, when you go out and you go to a tournament, and while like Warhammer Hearts is good on the tournament aspect because it's a very, very, very competitive game. That's sort of what it's designed to be. I mean,
the tables are very barren.
There's basically a table. I mean, nowadays it's not even like real terrain. There's mostly the neoprene terrain, so it's all just flat terrain on the building. So there's no like visual aspect to it.
Right.
So.
Well, Jordan, did you have anything else as we kind of waylaid your perspective on working those shows? Anything else you want to say about volunteer work and all the time you've put in being Don's manservant?
Right. No.
All right, good answer.
Good.
So, since we're already talking about it, I'll go ahead and go over the next part here, which was how do you actually help volunteer at shows if you want to do it? Well, the best way to do that is to either email us directly through the TT Combat Facebook page, especially if you're in the UK and the EU, because obviously I don't work over there, so I can't help you very much on that end. But always looking for volunteers to help out at the shows, so you can email them or message them directly on the Facebook pages. Either through the TT Combat page or through the game that you like, Carnival, Rum Slam, whatever. Let them know, hey, you need help? Here's my availability. I'd like to help out a little bit. Typically, there's booth compensation in the form of products. As far as that goes, I don't run things over in the UK, so I can't speak exactly as to how they run things over there. But I know in the US, basically, I give you a couple of options. Either you can work for a couple of days and I cover your badge and stuff like that, or if you want to work the whole show, that usually includes some hotel stay as well. That might be a spot on the floor, that might be a spot in a bed. That kind of depends on the show and the cost. Or even just piecemeal it. If you have like a 4-hour block at a show where you have nothing going on and you'd like to come over and get to know some of the guys and run some demos and get to meet some new people, and we compensate you with a little bit of booth credit. You can, possibly walk out with a couple of goodies without having even to pay for it. So, not too bad for a little bit of your time.
No, and I'm gonna say, the Origin experience, we had that. We had half dozen of us staying at that B&B. That was a good time. I mean, just after the show, getting to hang out, talk.
Yeah, shop. It's also, if you're new in, not only new in the game, but also new in the hobby in general, and Dropzone or Drop Fleet just happens to be your stuff, or Carnival and Rumble Slam, whatever it is. As we actually met Alex and Terrell this year, new guys I never met in my life, and now we're good friends. just from doing a show together.
Yeah, I was about to say,
so,
that's how I met. That's how I became friends with Fox. Was I met him at MGT, and then we hung out at Origins.
Yeah, so Fox, Cam, Jared, all Omaha guys. They're all a great group of dudes over there. Shout out to them, since they're a good friend of ours, and they've helped us out tremendously over the years. And then,
So wrapping
that's
up,
kind of how you go about doing that. But anyway, so getting a hold of through the Facebook pages, but you can also get a hold of me on Facebook or email me at hawktalendon@gmail.com. And maybe Derek will remember to put that in the show notes if there are any.
I probably won't, but we can always hope.
That's fine. They can just rewind.
They can also pop over to the Command Value 1 Facebook page and find the three of us there.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot we have a Facebook page now. We're legit.
We are legit. It's not really live yet. I figured we'd get an episode up and then turn everything on. But while we're wrapping up the whole What's New section here, Don, while we were at Gen Con, they announced, of course, Battle for Earth, where we're talking finally full official rules for destroyers and dreadnoughts, and literally a couple plus dozen potential new drop zone units, plus full version 2 rules. We're talking a really meaty text coming out Q1 next year. And you're helping Dave with polishing up the version 2 rules, right?
Yep. So as everybody knows, or hopefully everybody knows, the beta rules have been up for a little bit of time now. We were kind of hoping to get to them a little bit sooner than we have right now. But I am getting into it right now. In fact, I'm currently doing all the work to get the remainder of the zone units switched over to V2 so we can get the stats up for all that stuff so everybody can get them on the table. I know the Resistance players, myself included, have been really pawing at whether or not the stats were going to come out soon or not, so they can get them on the table. Even though it's kind of like logical switches over. There were a few big units that kind of needed a bit more tweaking and things like that. Like, for example, the Hellhog has needed a little bit of work. So essentially what we're doing with that is more or less making 2 separate units out of it. So you're going to have your fast mover interceptor version, and then you're going to have your transitioned version, which can actually be used on the table full time. So you're getting 2 separate units out of that. So there won't be you're losing the part where you get the transition during your attack run, but I can tell you right now we're sort of making both of those worth the loss of that one tactic. So it's going to be really, really fun, and hopefully I can get those out to you guys soon.
Well, I have proposed the easiest solution for the Resistance in version 2.
Yeah, they're gonna be in there. You're not gonna disclude them, all right?
All right. I tried.
So it's just a few things, and a couple other things. Like, I know one other fun thing I'll share with you right now is that the Coyote is going to get a little bit of a buff, and that the Ramses unit will have a standard version of it. And in fact, what it's probably going to end up happening is it will sort of be like an upgraded Coyote. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it'll get and how that works out, but
this is right after I bought all of the rest of the Shaltari units I needed for my army. I didn't buy a Ramsey because I don't normally do famous commanders, and now you tell me this crap.
Yeah. So one of the things when TT took over is, and something I'm really happy that they kind of got on board with, was making great standard versions of the famous commanders. There's a few that just aren't logically worth doing. Like, Kato isn't going to get a standard version because it doesn't really make sense to it. It was sort of done in reverse. So Kato came out after the Ferrum. Ferrum is sort of the standard version of that unit. So
will Eden's Dinosaur get a standard version?
No, I mean, that a lot of people have used that as Desolators and stuff like that. They don't like the Desolator, so it can be used as a unit that's already out there.
Okay.
So it's not like there isn't a modeling sacrifice being done. So, like Ramses, for example, you could say, okay, well, the Coyote's already out there, but since Ramses has the headdress, we found it was worth utilizing that model a bit more. So
it is a cool looking model.
Carl Foley can be a Hellhog.
Exactly, and since there's going to be a reason to have multiple hogs now, and if you want to have one,
Yeah, using those as badass gunships will be.
What was that?
Using those as badass gunships will be a reason to get more of them on the board.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if you want to do strike attack runs and also have one on the table as a cool gunship, so you're gonna need multiples of those. Why not have a sweet ass Carfolio out there? Anyway, so moving forward from that, Battle for Earth, as you already kind of hit on most of the things that are going to be out for that. It is going to be a big book. It's going to be a big boy, and I think we've done really good at collaborating with both Dave and TT Combat, collaborating on what we should do and where the game should go, and I think it's all worked out pretty well. I realize it seems like there's been a bit of a dead space. One thing we can go over that at the end because we're going to bring that up at the end. But there's a reason for a bit of the pause and some of that going on right now. So it's not that TT Combat doesn't care about the games, or not that we don't care about the games. It's just it's a bigger company now, and there's bigger things going on that Hawk would not have been able to do when they owned the company. So it's kind of one of those things where without sharing everything ahead of time and having to possibly change things, or you don't want to promise big, not deliver. So,
well, we're running along in the what's new section, but we need to talk about it because as we record this, we're 8 days away from pre-orders and the release of the rules for Dreadnought starting. Now, I know you've seen all the Dreadnought rules, obviously, and I know I had a nice chat with Dave at Gen Con where we talked about the Romulus and the Remus and what they could do. And I know there's some people that are already talking about concerns about maybe the firepower of these ships won't be as devastating. But from what I've seen and from what I've been told, we're talking about cutting battleships in half with a single volley.
Yeah, so extensive playtesting on these, using everybody from casual players to tournament players, and then everything in between to make sure that these things hit on all the points. We can't just make this a strong tournament unit and then it not be fun to play outside of tournaments, or make a unit so strong that it's indestructible on the play field. There has to be a fine line with strong units like this. I mean, these are going to be the biggest ships in the game. I don't see us going any bigger than these or any reason to go any bigger than these. So it's kind of one of those things where you really have to toe a line when it gets to the big units like these, between making them usable, something you can actually play in a standard game, and it be killed, which it can be. Every one of these has died on the table several times during gameplay. So, and
most of them to echoes.
Huh?
Most of them to echoes.
I mean, no. Yeah. So there are weaknesses to these as well. I mean, they seem pretty devastating on paper, but I think one thing that people aren't including into this, and because we haven't actually shown what it is yet, is there's a different crippling table for these guys and catastrophic table. So,
yeah, Dave mentioned also that these things don't just burn up in the atmosphere when they go down.
No, so there's no.
We're talking extinction events when these things crash into
there's
planets.
A lot more finite stuff that happens with these. So we're taking out a lot of the roll dice to see what happens type thing. Obviously, there's charts that we roll dice on to see what effect happens, but then we've taken out a lot of the, for the catastrophic table, there's no random explosion ranges. Each effect has, this is what it does, and here's what it affects. To make sure that it's epic and it's really cool, and also that you don't want to have a dreadnought blow up and then you roll one and it doesn't do anything. It just fizzles up and goes away, because it's not going to happen. These ships are way too big to do that. So, but anyway, so and then on the crippling table, the dreadnoughts they're rolling on it twice.
Yeah, we're talking hull values so big that you kind of cripple them in stages.
Yeah, so after a certain amount of damage points sustained, you roll on it, and then again. And we've had it happen where you have to roll twice, and you've met both thresholds along the way that you roll on it twice.
Nice.
And so they do die. It's not going to be one of those things where they're indestructible. So anyways, and then each of these is also, we're hoping that they fill specific roles as well. We don't want just them to be mega gunships for no reason, We want each of them to sort of fill in roles because they're going to be tying up a lot of your points. So when you do list building, you want these things to be worth taking.
You got a ballpark on points? Are we talking, a third of your list to bring a dreadnought?
So our goal was to have them be playable in 1,250 point games, but not be like a guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like it's not
this
going
is going to be a centerpiece unit that you're building. This is going to be a centerpiece style unit that you're building your fleet around.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I was getting into with the roles, is that they will, because they will be filling multiple roles. That means you have to sort of, in your mind while you're list building, think, oh, because this ship does this, I don't need these 5 ships, or that kind of thing.
Well, we've got just over a week, and we'll finally get those rules into everybody's hands, and they can start dissecting them, and I'm sure that'll light up the Facebook group with some activity.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully everybody really likes these. We work really hard on them, and Dave poured his soul into the design of them, and then we've done extensive playtesting. You guys have helped out a little bit as well, so. I really think that every one of these serves a purpose, and anywhere we felt like something was lacking, we brought something in to kind of help them along. So I will say that each of the factions sort of have like a cool factor to them as well. So we wanted each of these to feel like they were actual commanding units, that kind of a thing,
Well, if you've got nothing new from the What's New, you want to move on and talk about some game recaps?
I don't know. What did you have in mind for What's New? I forget what you wanted to do there.
We just got to the end of that bullet point list.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah, we.
Sorry, I was looking at the stats for the dreadnoughts. I didn't look at our sheet here. So.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah. I'll tell you that. There's going to be some new zone unit stats coming out. So all of the new famous commanders that came out this year have standard versions of them. So hopefully those, at the very least, hopefully we're getting those stats out soon. They're going to be a lot of fun to play with. Like, it's kind of was always the tease of the famous commanders. You're like, oh, they're such cool toys, But then you have to have somebody else who has it, otherwise it's not a fair game. So having like a simpler version of them, but still be really cool to have on the table is, it's really cool to have that as well.
Yeah. Well, let's move into some recaps here real quick, because we're running the risk of running long at this point. Long introductory episode. Who wants to listen to us talk for more than an hour?
Hopefully everybody.
Oh, well, true. So Don, I know you haven't had a chance to play much because you've been busy painting models and running the biggest game show of the year and all that. Excuses that you throw out for not playing. I'm getting
the bane of working in industries that you don't actually get to play the game very often.
Right. I've actually got a game day scheduled in Columbus on the 25th. Hey Jordan, you think you're gonna make that?
I think I'm gonna make that.
Oh, that'd be sweet if you do. If that's the case, I get to test out my Michigan Grand Tournament PHR list for Drop Fleet. I'm going to run a Priam and a Bellerophon, and then I'm going to do a couple of Jasons and a couple of Ariadnes and play with my destroyers. See how that goes. But Jordan, the last game we played was a version 2 game up at the Dragon's Roost in Toledo, which was a really nice shop. I came after you with my Shaltari against your Scourge. Was a draw where I pummeled your army almost out of existence. No, it was a really
No,
good game, though. I mean, it came down to I was the only person with an objective, but Jordan managed to hold his focal point and contest my focal point. We played secure the flanks.
so you decimated my infantry, but I think the units themselves.
You know what's great about this is there's a video battle report on my YouTube channel that tells the tale of how screwed your army was by the end of turn 6.
I didn't see you posted that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really good game, though. And the thing that I found, I think Jordan will agree with me, the thing I found with version 2 is it's a lot harder to end the game by turn 4. The game really does. I mean, you get into the buildings and you're searching and finding objectives faster, but the game it forces you. I think this was Jordan's statement, is it forces you to make your tactical decisions quicker and more frequently than it did in version 1. You can't lollygag as much as you used to, which I think is great. It really ups the intensity of the game.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Dropzone. It's what draws me. It's what keeps me in the game. Is the game is built around forcing you to make difficult tactical decisions. Like every decision you make, there's going to be a plus and minus to whatever you do. And I think version 2 is even better at that.
Yeah, I'm very excited for full finished rules and to actually get it into tournament play. I think the tournament scene with version 2 is going to be such an exciting place to be in. And that's, like I said, that's over on the YouTube channel if anyone wants to go check that out. And I hope we'll shoot some type of battle report this weekend. I might actually get a fleet battle report up. Other than that, I played a little Infinity last week, and I managed to win at that, which made me feel pretty good about myself. But because early Infinity, you tend to get curb stomped until you kind of master your army.
Also know all the library rules as well.
Yeah, I literally went through and kind of pulled my units. The advantage of playing U.S. Ariadna being a sectorial is a lot fewer units that I can use. So I built myself a PDF of my special rules. So I just got like a 4-page document of what all of my unit special rules are, and that really has helped me speed up the game.
But you don't know everyone else's special rules.
No, you got to rely on your player to not cheat you. And the one guy, Chris, who's gotten me back to playing it regularly, really good dude. One of those very generous players to play with. He's very much about teaching you how to play the game. He wants people to play. He doesn't want people to beat on. You know what I mean? So you just gotta make sure you're playing with the right people and find players you can trust that aren't going to try to curb stomp you because they can curb stomp you.
Yeah.
But I think that's a kind of one of those life lessons in any game you get to play. But let's talk a little hobby. Don, you want to talk about what is on or was recently on your bench?
Yeah, I just shipped off a couple days ago, actually, the Sheltari Dreadnought. That thing was a nightmare to paint.
How are your eyes?
Yeah, so I think the dot count, I think it was somewhere around 11,000. And then each of those had to be painted twice.
So when I was at Gen Con talking to Dave,
Don, are you saying even the dots had dots?
Dots had dots.
I was talking to Dave about that, and I asked him why he hates Sheltari players, and he laughed, and he said, I don't. He said, but I do think Don hates me now.
So it was interesting to paint, though. That was definitely the hardest model I've ever had to paint. As much as I couldn't wait to see that thing shipped off, I feel really accomplished at the end of that. So hope everybody likes that. It'll be on the wobbly turning wheel soon here.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see it fall over.
No, it's not going to fall over. And everybody's concerned about it. The dreadnoughts falling over. They don't fall over. Okay.
Dreadnoughts wobble, but they don't fall down?
Yeah. So that it's no problem at all.
Trademark, copyright by Weebles.
Yeah, they're not going to fall over. Okay, I mean, if you push them over, of course, but I mean, that's any model, really. So we actually did think about whether or not the models would stand out.
So I know you're getting ready to move as yourself, Don. Is your hobby table kind of on hold until your move happens, or what do you got on there now?
Yeah, so that was the last thing I was going to do before I moved. So of course, I'm also moving, since I didn't go over that in the get to know me section. Staying in Michigan, just moving a bit west of where I am right now. Other things on the table, though, I have unfinished PHR destroyers right in front of me here. A whole slew of UCM fleet stuff for the display case that I had to put on pause back in, I don't know, February. So, and then when I get back up and running, I'll have a charity piece that I'm going to be painting up for some guys that do a charity thing over in Chaos Cup, which is a Blood Bowl tournament over in Chicago suburbs every year.
Cool. Gordo, what about you? I know you're spending a lot of time away from your paint desk down in Cincinnati. What's sitting back on your desk waiting for you to love it?
What isn't on the paint desk? I have a bad habit of starting and then not finishing. I'm trying to put the finishing touches on my Scourge army. So I have a few of those units base coated. I have a few Infinity units half painted. I have a 2-up Beijing base coated. I have a 2-up Ajax together, but not base coated. I have the 30 mil Ares together, but not base coated.
Listen, no one likes a braggart.
Yeah, but this is a growing problem, though, because I'm not clearing the desk.
You were the one that told me that Goblin Math says you never have more than 20 miniatures to paint.
Yes. See, goblins aren't good at math, so they can only count up to their fingers and their toes. So any number larger than 20 is still 20.
Is it that you get to a point where it's you get to like the hard part, so to speak, and then you kind of move on, or is it just a bit of ADD?
I kind of only work on things I want to work on, and lately there's been a lot of nights like, hey, I feel like putting something together. I don't really feel like getting the paint out and painting it.
No, I hear that. I do that a lot too.
I call you guys lazy is what I do.
And I just haven't got back into the painting aspect of it. And I think part of that is it's easier to, with the lack of time lately, it's easier to just start cleaning some models and assembling them. You can put that down and pick it back up again. Whereas, especially if you're trying to do a decent chunk of army painting at once, the volume of what you're doing can kind of be intimidating on, I don't want to paint that much tonight. If I start this, I'm going to be painting for the next 3 hours, and I won't be able to get out of it because I got to go from A to B, and I need that much time.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to bring up too, because some people will do a piece from start to finish, and some people will run the gamut and do a sort of assembly line paint job for a crew going or whatever.
I've been mastering the assembly line painting. It's been my goal.
I think it depends on what you're working on too, because the assembly line helps you with consistency. So if you're working on an individual model, something that's supposed to be unique, I'm going to go start to finish.
Yeah. Well, you bring that up. Since Origins, I've painted a ton of crap, like a table's worth of terrain and a couple thousand points of Shaltari. But you make that interesting point about going start to finish. I painted Aurelia Felix. How do you pronounce her name? But as a command
That's
unit, I
me.
made sure that. What was that, Don?
So you're asking me?
Yeah, you work for the company.
I don't know how to say it.
Isn't it pronounced Super Nord?
God, I
Yes.
love that thing. I can't wait for regular stats, Don. I need regular stats for that.
Gonna be sweet.
Yeah. Can I run? I'm going to run that in 2 or 3 Nords at Michigan GT, so I better get those stats soon.
Nord.
Nord.
Yeah, well, my Shaltari paint scheme's been really simple, though, so I don't know that I can say that I've really painted a bunch of Shaltari, but I have plowed through a bunch of Shaltari pretty quickly. More
After you
importantly,
spent like 8 months taking the lacquer off them.
that's a slight exaggeration, Don. They took about a 3.5 to 4 month simple green bath, but they're coming clean now. Nothing's getting in their way. I did paint up those 4 PHR destroyers recently, though, and those went really fast.
Oh yeah. Your hot rod red PHR.
You know, that army just looks sexy in red, though. I've been told by several people that they like that paint scheme on them.
Yeah, looks good. Yeah.
I'm not gonna check out my studio paint job, but yeah, I think they look all right.
Like the bad boys or whatever version of it instead of the boring old cream.
If I can get a +1 inch move on those, I'd be happy.
Not getting anything else out of those things.
They're red; they go faster.
And your long reach team is not getting straight.
You know what? I didn't get to personally ask Dave that, but last year when he told you to tell me F no, I assumed that they were never getting it.
One thing I've learned about Dave so far was working with him. You can grind him down sometimes.
I thought maybe with alcohol I could convince him, but well, let's move on. We're passing over the 1 hour mark. Let's move on to our final thoughts here. And one of the things that we've all discussed this off and on several times is you see the random post pop up where someone says, "Oh man, no one's playing this game within 3 blocks of my house. It must be dead." And I mean, I know I personally get so sick of reading that, and we kind of talked about this at the beginning about how do you build that community and how do you get people to play, and using that logic and that mentality. I don't know anyone around me within an hour and a half that regularly plays War Machines, that regularly plays 40K, that regularly plays any of the major popular games that are out there today. So using that logic, it's really easy to go, oh, well, no one around me is playing Warhammer 40,000. Games Workshop must be going belly up, and that game must be dead. And we all know that's not true. I mean, they're still the big dog in the industry. They're going to be for a while because it's a popular game. So, I mean, what do you do? How do you address those concerns or comments from players, especially when you see those popping up after an event like Gen Con, where you see a lot of people walk by the booth and they jump into this game for the first time and they're joining that community, and the first thing they're seeing is someone belly aching that, oh, the game is dead because I'm too lazy to go to the store and play it.
Yeah, and it's also, people will say, it's not even just that they won't go out and play the game, this and that and the other thing. It's also that they're not even looking at the information available. We see dozens of questions every month that are the same thing, and there's videos off of our Facebook pages and our YouTube pages and within the community itself, and to answer these questions, the first thing they do is, I have a dilemma, and I'm just going to go right to, I relate it to the people who go into a grocery store, and instead of taking 2 seconds to look at the signs that say where everything is in the store, they immediately walk right up to somebody and say, "Hey, where's the toilet paper?" something that's going to be available to them if they took 2 seconds to actually take the time to find the information out. And that's not to say that you can't go onto the groups and ask questions and stuff like that. I don't want anybody to feel like they're intimidated to not ask a question, but it seems like these same generic questions are over and over and over and over. And it seems like the same responses of the same type of people, you know what I'm saying? So anyways.
To play the devil advocate, I can kind of understand some of the concern because we'll call it a rough patch. A long period of time where not a lot of new releases for Dropzone. Hawk changes hands. The TT Combat. TT Combat's a newer name. Hawk was kind of a known commodity, so I did have a few game store owners when we go in and play is like, hey, I'm having a rough time getting the models. So it was kind of a perfect storm of a few different things I think added to the difficulty.
Right, and some of these are just problems there that anybody would have really have had. That, you know, if you buy a known game and you are an unknown company for the most part, these are the challenges you go through. And I think the biggest one, of course, was U.S. distribution, because for a little while we didn't have U.S. distribution. And it's not that for lack of trying, you know, we can't really go on Facebook and say, you know, all the U.S. distributors are being mean to us and they won't stock our product. You know, you can't really say that kind of stuff, especially the, you know, owner of the company. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like you know, you have to build up trust with distribution, even if you have a game that they know. You know, let's face it, Dropzone and Fleet weren't exactly making these guys rich. You know what I'm saying?
It's a niche game,
right?
And
so,
beyond that, even now, Dropzone is only 5 years old, and that's still a very new game in this industry. Especially when you compare it to games that have been around 30 plus years.
And some games just inherently make more money for these people, you know, distributors. Like they're not going to give you space over Magic Together. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to give you space over 40K. They're not going to give you space over
Pokemon,
Final Fantasy, or not Final Fantasy, but Fantasy Flight stuff. You know, like X-Wing, things like that. You know, these are just things that you have to contend with. So you know, it's not just like you call up a distributor and they buy 50 pallets of your stuff, and then we're all good to go. You know, it's not the way it works.
Well, and a lot of this too is some of it's a chicken and the egg question. For the more niche games at your game store, you know, the stuff that's not 40K, you have to have a local active player base to have the product in the store, and that's not just TT Combat games. That's anyone's games.
That's even Warlord games, really. I mean, bolt action's widely popular, but if no one's playing bolt action, you're not going to stack bolt action, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately how it goes as well. So even if you do have access to it, is your game store going to stock it? I don't know. It depends on if you're playing it there or not.
It all kind of just boils down to the same principle. If you like this game and you want to play this game, if you like that game and you want to play that game, you need to put in a little effort. You need to go out into public with your painted models and your painted terrain, and maybe you have to run a couple of demos. But enthusiasm is the greatest salesperson. If someone sees that you're playing a game and you really like the game and you're going to continue to play it, I think that's what encourages people to spend money on a game is, people are going to play this.
And it's kind of, so the breakdown of it is, obviously you have the game company who makes the game. They want to get the game out to everybody. So they talk to, typically, what most games will do is or manufacturers will do, they will do trade shows, of course, so they can get their name out there. You know, PR stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then you also need to get into distributors if you're a really, you know, small incoming company. So that way stores have access to your stuff. But that's no easy feat because you have to convince them why they need to stock your product when they only have so much warehouse space. Every inch of warehouse space at a distributor is money to them, you know. So, and then on top of that, you also they then need to have stores that want to buy from that product from them. So it's whether or not a store wants to take up retail space, but again, every square inch of it costs them money. And then on top of that, it comes down to what you're saying, like, is anybody playing this game here?
Right.
So it's a complicated system that a lot of people just think that, okay, snap your fingers and then every distributor has your stuff and then every store carries it and then cool, awesome. And then whenever I feel like getting around to buying it, I'll go buy it. Kind of a deal. So it really, you know, there's no one answer for this stuff. It's not for lack of trying. We've talked to U.S. distributors like over and over and over again. We got Golden Distribution online with us right now in the U.S. And we also have Kingsley Distribution, which is us. We have a whole full distribution end to our company as well. Obviously, that's not like amazing for the U.S. side because of shipping costs and everything, but you know, it is available and it is a full distribution end where it's not just the stuff that we have. You know, it's get your 40K and you know this, that, and the other thing from them, Infinity and whatever else we carry on the distribution end. So it's, you know, where do you go from there? I mean, at a certain point, you can only call somebody's phone so many times, you know.
Right.
So.
Well, hey, you know what? That's almost everything on our list. We've officially made it through our first episode. So
yeah, we want to tease a couple of up-and-coming treats.
I think we should. I think our goal is to try to do this monthly. I think if we have content, obviously we'll consider doing it more frequently. But one of the segments we've discussed and have an agreement with someone to do is a segment called Ask the Swede, where we'll have one of our friends, Patrick, come on, who is a exceptional player. And he's going to discuss things like tactics, strategies, and list buildings. You've secured occasional visits from Dave himself, and
probably worth mentioning that Patrick is Swedish. That's why we're calling it Ask the Swede.
Oh yeah, well, you know, and normally I have to refer to him as Swedish Patrick because we have Columbus Patrick as well. But you did say that you've confirmed Dave for the occasional visit, so yep. The creator of this game himself may come chat with us.
I talk with Dave on a regular basis. Obviously, I work with him and everything like that, so I secured some airtime with them whenever we want him, pretty much.
Whenever we want him? Well, he can be a regular.
Well, he's got a lot to do, so.
There's a couple of other guys at TT Combat that we might want to talk to as well.
Yeah.
But
I can do my best to secure some other TT staff for this as well. Lewis is now our TT Combat's main dude. And then Louis, of course, owns the company. And then we have people who work the MDF cutters. We have people who run the Jay over at the main office is in our resin room. So all kinds of stuff we could chat about with these people.
Yeah, I think when you get a picture of how much TT Combat has going on as far as the resin room, their terrain casting, their laser cut MDF, you start to get a really good view of how cool this game and its support is going to be in the future moving on.
Right, yeah.
You know, and if you see any of the pictures from Gen Con, Jordan painted up his full MDF table from TT Combat. It's sweet. And that last battle report that I've referenced a couple times that Jordan and I played, we played on his MDF table. So you can kind of see the table in action. He's got several of his buildings up there. There's some really sweet stuff coming down the pipe. So if you're in Ohio or Michigan or relatively close, make sure you look up the Ohio or Michigan drop zone groups, drop fleet groups, get into those, get some games played. If you're also in the Michigan area, the GT is coming up October 12th through the 14th. That's like Don's big tournament. Jordan and I
run that solo. So this is the third year, right?
Yeah, Jordan and I were there last year. We made the second year, and that was a hell of a good time.
Yeah.
So we're looking
So basically,
forward.
what it is it's a tournament. I mean, it's
It's a
not
grand
a highly competitive tournament. So essentially, what it is it's 2 one-day tournaments, but also there's a like grand champion, if you will, of the 2 games. So your tournament points carry over from, in this case, it would be Drop Fleet first, over into Dropzone, which is on Sunday this year. And then, so not only do you have a chance of winning individual tournaments or just playing in them as casual, there will also be overall winners. So let's say you're terrible at Fleet but good at Zone, maybe you'll win the whole thing.
And I can say from experience, it was a blast last year. I met Aaron there, I met Josh there, and made some good friends there, and really had a good time.
Everybody seems to have a pretty good time at this one. I mean, at all of our shows, really, everybody has a good time.
The tournament community has not been aggressive.
No,
it's been a very laid back tournament community, and that's nice.
That's not to say the games can't be competitive, though.
No, I've played a lot of really good games, but I've never had a table flip. I've never had someone pissed off. It's
Right.
always been a fun experience.
Yes, the tournament community for Dropzone is very friendly.
Yeah. So MichiganGT.com is the website for the Michigan GT. You can register and also see what else they have available there. So maybe you want to do Zone on Sunday and play some Infinity on Saturday. There's all kinds of games being played there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a nice little event. What's the name of your Dropzone Drop Fleet group on Facebook, Don?
It's Dropzone Drop Fleet Michigan.
Okay.
That was the actual name. It's somewhere in the long lines.
Yeah. The Ohio group is Ohio Dropzone / Drop Fleet Commanders. Then of course we're all in the main groups. Don, you're one of the admins for the main groups, aren't you?
Yep, one of the main admins actually.
All right.
I have the power.
And then Gamer Drek, DREK on YouTube for battle reports and other info. And I think that's all the pimping we've got. Oh, of course, come find us on Facebook at Command Value 1. We'll have links to everything in there. So, guys, any other final thoughts before we wrap this inaugural episode up?
No, I think what I hope that this podcast turns into, obviously, a little bit of a bitch fest today to handle a couple of things that we sort of on our mind. Can we call that like the what grind our gears section or whatever is that from Family Guy?
You know
what
really
grinds my gears?
We don't want to sound like a bunch of broad grinds over here, but anyway, so we hope this is a real fun format, and we want it to be very loose, and it's not going to be full of expensive sounding transition moments and things like that going out there. It's going to be more or less us kind of just BSing and then bringing in cool people to talk about some cool things.
Yeah, and hopefully
we can get them available.
Hopefully some interaction through that Facebook group. Kind of let us know. Maybe you guys, listeners, can kind of guide the conversation. If you've got questions for people that we're going to talk to, feel free to share those and get them up on the group and kind of guide the conversation here.
Yeah, and in fact, since neither one of us or any 3 of us are real tournament players per se, we'll probably actually be reaching out to the community to ask for the Ask the Swedes section to see what they want to know about a list build or a tactic or something like that to help them along. Or
just I swear to God, though, if there is a transition, it'll be the Swedish Chef for Patrick.
The Swedish Chef.
I love it.
He lamented that no one did that to him at Origins this year. He said he lost some faith in Americans.
Yeah, we were all too nice to him. He's moving, by the way, as well. So.
Oh God, where's he going?
He's just somewhere in the area. It's not too far where he is right now.
Not Sweden.
I think he was like renting or something so they decided to stay in the U.S. a little bit longer and put some roots down. We're all super happy that he's going to be here longer here. Good dude. So. Yeah,
awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap this up, call it a night, and we'll do this again when you're all in new houses.
Yeah. All right, dude. I'll see you guys later then.
All right, guys. Night.
Night.
Take it easy.